My coffee shop stalker. A little bit of background. I, 23 female, was 20 at the time. I moved in with my uncle in San Antonio, Texas, with the agreement that I wouldn't have to pay rent as long as I helped him out with chores and my cousins. I got a job at a super well-known coffee chain downtown close to the touristy part of the area. We had a lot of regulars and a lot of homeless coming in and out. I felt relatively safe though because I got to know the people there and it was almost always a lot of foot traffic. I used to even take walks after work in the area, especially since I was super close to the Riverwalk. Skip to a couple months into the job, and I was friends with everyone I worked with. We were all super close. On this particular day, it was one of my coworkers' last day. There were about 3 guys who had been there almost all morning. They hadn't bought anything and were just hanging out, which I guess wasn't really unusual for my location. On my break, I decided to walk down to a nearby drugstore so I can get a farewell card and maybe a small gift for said coworker. I walked out and put my earbuds in, and before I could press play, I hear the door open behind me and footsteps following behind. Whoever it was caught up to me and started walking beside me, matching my pace exactly. I turned to look, and it was one of the guys that had been there all morning. He was a bit taller than me and reminded me of Lakeith Stanfield. He tried to ask for my number, and I kindly told him no. He persisted, and I, with a short temper, told him to fuck off. He stopped and stared at me in surprise, as I don't look like someone who speaks up or who would be rude. He stood there as I walked away, and by the time I got back, they were gone. I proceeded to tell my coworkers about the encounter, and we laughed it off. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. Every shift after that, he would already be there just hanging out or would walk in mid-shift. Sometimes with somebody else, sometimes by himself. I assumed it was just another homeless person because how else was he always able to be around? My shifts were sporadic. Some days I opened, some days I closed. Some days I worked mid, but it didn't matter. He was always there. At that point, I started feeling paranoid. I would always catch him staring in my direction. He never ordered anything, never talked to me, but luckily he never followed me. He just stood there, watching me. I started mentioning it to my coworkers, and they started noticing it too. One of my team leaders would help me out by sending me to do dishwasher tasks in the back or organize the cooler. My coworkers would also try and place themselves to try and block me from his view. I started feeling uncomfortable at work. Sometimes when I closed, a coworker would walk me out to my car before heading home themselves. Or if I didn't close, they would walk me to my car and turn around and head back to work. Then, one day of him just staring, I was working the register that day. He walked up and ordered a water. I asked for his name in his order. I now had his first name, just in case. He took his water and sat down. I had mentioned him before to my manager, but because he hadn't really done anything, we couldn't do anything besides note it in the manager book. The next day, I worked with my manager. I told them I had to go to the bathroom real quick. There were 2 bathrooms right next to each other, but sort of hidden from the coffee bar and register, and they weren't gender specific. I walked around the bar to the lobby area. I had to pass his table and walk down the lobby to get to the bathrooms. I noticed him get up before going inside the bathroom. I sat down to do my business when someone rattled the knob. I shouted out that it was occupied, but whoever it was kept rattling the door until I finished. When I opened the door, no one was there, and walking back, I noticed him adjusting back into his chair. I was super freaked out and told my boss. He couldn't tell him anything because we had no proof that it was him. Later that shift, he got up and picked up a coffee from the pickup area. My boss assumed he had ordered it and let him take it. I told him it wasn't, and that it wasn't even his name. My boss used this as an opportunity to tell him that if he does something like that again, he can't come back. The man apologized and actually stuck to the rules every day after that. He went back to just watching me. Cut to Valentine's Day. One of my team leaders and I would be scheduled to work certain Thursdays after close to deep clean the store. We would stay until 1 a.m. This was one of those Thursdays. We were almost done and I had to clean the bathrooms as one of the last chores. And as I walked out the bathroom, I see him peeking in with both his hands pressed to the window, eyes wide, just staring at me with this super intense look. I froze for a second, just staring back. I noticed on one of his palms that is pressed to the window, a purple foam heart. He doesn't move at all. I freak out and shout, Hannah, he's here. He's back. She barely hears me through the music we were blasting. Hannah was the team lead who would help me hide from him, so she knew the huge fear I had towards him. She walks towards the bathroom shouting, "What are you saying? What's going on?" As soon as she gets close, she sees him. I told her again, "He's here. He's watching me." She started shouting through the window, "You need to leave. If you don't leave, we're calling the police." I step back into the bathroom and my lead continues to shout at him to leave and threatens him with the police. About 5 minutes pass and he realizes that I'm not stepping out until he leaves, so he does. The next day, my lead and I told the manager I want to file a police report, but he tells me no, to wait until he talks to his boss. He shows up again that day, but I was only there to talk to my manager and leave right after. When I got home, a friend convinced me to call the cops, so I text my boss that I don't care what he or his boss says. I'm scared and I'm gonna file that report. I dial 911, tell them a summarized version, and they tell me they're gonna send someone to where I live to take the official report. The two officers were so nice and supportive. I told them my whole story and how my boss didn't feel the need to get cops involved since I wasn't harmed. The officers told me that I should have called right away and defended me, saying that they can get him for harassment. I thanked them, and they tell me that if he shows up, to dial 911 so they can take him in for trespassing and harassing. I think that day my manager banned him and warned him because he never showed up to the coffee shop again. A few months later, when I was comfortable again with downtown, I went out with some friends to walk around. We were close to where I worked, and as we round a corner, I see him. And so I ducked into a little corner store and my friends follow. I told them I saw him and they kept an eye out. Once he was out of view, we left the store and that was the last time I saw him.